Good morning, and welcome to day 3 of the General Managers meetings. Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly and I will take your questions in a moment. I know you heard from Coley on Monday and George yesterday. I don't have any major announcements to make. Suffice it to say, I think the managers had a good 3 days of discussions, and I don't think there was anything contentious. A little bit of some rule discussions. As I said, you heard about it, whether it was hand passes or kick pucks or little tweaks here and there, things that we should be looking at. My conclusion from listening to the discussion is the game's in good shape. We're looking forward to an exciting stretch run in playoffs, and games as a game in the business of the game, we're both in really good shape. And with that, I'll be, and Bill will be happy to take your questions.
Gary, after the announcement of the World Cup, there was a report that came out that some of the European countries, including the host in Czechia, would not participate if Russia was involved. Have you guys heard anything about it? Can you confirm that?
You know, you always hear rumors and conjecture. As I said on Monday, as we will see where we are when it's time to round out the field of teams that participate.
So is it rumors, or like the one thing in the report was that the federations have actually come to you guys and said they wouldn't play?
I don't. Have we gotten a formal no? No. No.
We know how they feel, and they have strong feelings about it. And quite frankly, it's the same strong feelings we've expressed and the international hockey community has expressed. So I don't think there's really anything
New. No.
there.
Why don't you come over here since
Oh,
that'd be.
apparently I can talk from here now.
Yeah, you can come here. Get a better backdrop for the picture.
Commissioner, just your reaction to the Gudis Matthews play, some of the criticism that George took, and Arne Davis' reaction.
George always takes criticism, most of it unfair. He goes through a very detailed process in analyzing any situation that comes before him. He shared the process with the managers as a group, and I believe they were satisfied with how thorough and diligent he was. And briefly, if you look at the precedent, he was certainly within the range. If you look at prior conduct, Gudis hadn't been suspended in 7 years, and kneeing is not an epidemic. I think there have been 18 suspensions over the last 15 years. And so, you know, people are going to criticize one way or the other. Whatever player safety does, that's not something that's new.
Would you be open if the Players Association came and said, could we talk about a change in the way that is done? Would you be open to it?
Actually, the process that we use is something that's been vetted and negotiated with the Players Association. And if they're unhappy, they always have a right to appeal it to me, which is why I stay out of the initial decision-making, because appeals of his decisions in the first instance come to me anyway.
And I think it's safe to say that over time, we've had extensive discussions with the Players Association on process and made changes on the basis of those discussions. It wasn't even an issue in our last collective bargaining negotiation. They're satisfied with how the system operates.
What was the post-analysis for the league's perspective on the Olympic participation and the impact it has had at all on the league since coming back?
I think on balance, because as you've heard me say repeatedly, probably more than you want to hear, going to the Olympics is a balancing act. I think the players who participated were thrilled with the experience without regard to outcome of any particular team. The hockey was sensational, and there seems to be a post-Olympic buzz, which among other things is driving interest in the game and our national ratings, certainly in the U.S. And so on balance, it was a very positive experience. There are things, and it's something that we discussed with the IOC and the IIHF. There are things that I think, as we look to the future, that we can do together that would make it more impactful both for the Olympics and for us. And as we start looking 4 years out, I'm hopeful to have those discussions.
You've discussed many times at this event that your confidence in the satisfaction in the playoff format. Right now this format is putting, two of the top 3 teams or 4 teams in the league in a position where they won't be past round 2, 2 of them not past round 1. Are you still comfortable with a format like that?
More than comfortable. It gives us a sensational first round, probably the best playoff first round in any sport. We get more games and longer series as a result of the format, and you can always pick at certain situations in any given year and say, well, I'd like it to be different that year, but if you look at the body of work that our playoffs represent over time, what we have now works extraordinarily well.
When you have now going to be an 84-game season, are you concerned that the regular season's starting to be something that doesn't really matter when it comes to playoff season?
If you look at the races for the playoffs, I think it's virtually impossible to say that the regular season has no meaning. To the contrary, every game counts. Going to 84 games, what that really does is balance off divisional play. Every team will play every other team twice home and twice away, which I think is good, so we're not doing any rotation within the division. If anything, I think it makes it more impactful.
Is that a big deal? Is that a big deal for you, Gary, in the league in terms of having a first round that is not heavy favorite versus underdog across the board? Like you just mentioned, having first rounds that go deep into the series. Like, is that?
I think that's a good thing. It creates it. It makes it exciting. It makes it entertaining. It's about us presenting a terrific game to our fans, and I don't think there's any debate that what we've been doing under the current format does that.
Did you feel, Commissioner, though, that in the last few days, few months, there was more discussions regarding
No.
that, or it's still the same thing?
Still the same.
With
Last year, we
we-
were sitting, I'm sorry, last year we were sitting in that room and looking at goalie challenges because of goalie
Yeah.
interference. And it was mentioned that, like snowflakes, they allow.
Everyone's different.
Would you agree that this year we have a snowstorm and it's getting more and more difficult?
No.
Like you as a fan, when you watch a game, are you able to?
I think Hockey Operations does a sensational job with video review, and much like supplemental discipline, everybody's going to have an opinion, and when there are a lot of close calls, it comes down to a judgment call. There are certain things about our game where you cannot get 100% certainty to everybody's satisfaction. But if you look at the body of work, I think our video replay system not only has been a leader among the sports, because all the other centralized systems are modeled on ours, it has held up extraordinarily well. Yeah, you're going to get calls that some people disagree with, but that's the way it goes. That's the beauty of sport.
international best on best has compressed your schedule over the last 2 years. Just what have you learned about that, and how can you potentially decompress it, trying to fit it all into what you want to with 84 games coming in and the commitment moving forward to international best on best?
Well, it's obviously something that, we take note of and study and analyze, and I can tell you that, our analysis of this year's experience has not been out of the norm at this point in time in terms of injury trends and the like, but it'll be something we continue to pay attention to, for sure. In terms of how can you decompress the schedule, I'm not sure there's a way you can decompress the schedule. It's going to be what it's going to be. Obviously, we in the Players Association are going into it with our eyes wide open, and there are consequences to doing what we want to do with international best on best competition. And as I said, I think they've, absent some coaches who might have different views, I think the players have generally been supportive of the schedule we played this year.
And in fact, it goes to what I said before when asked about the Olympic experience. It's a balancing act. And, we're not going to start in August and end in July. So there's a certain reality, and everybody understands that there are trade-offs going in when we're going to do best on best, which I think is good for the game and important to the players.
Where are you in the revenue projection for the season?
I don't know, I haven't had an
Well,
update.
we certainly didn't report to the general
But the
manager.
I mean, the answer is, we set a record last year, and revenues are up across the board, so we'll set another record this year. Is it 8 billion, give or take? It's probably somewhere in that universe, but I don't have a formal estimate. Something more we focus on for the board as opposed to the
I mean,
managers.
part of the difference too to prior years is we now have a template for what the cap's going to be and how it's going to grow over the next 2 years, and we have an agreement with the Players Association in that regard. So normally you're asking that question for purposes of knowing where the salary cap's going to be.
But we know.
Now we know.
Thank you. Bill, in terms of the playoff cap, which comes into effect for the first time in these playoffs, can you summarize the sort of the material way in which teams will submit their rosters that day, and if it's any different than, regular season?
So we've worked on that, and actually it's going to work a little bit differently than it's in the MOU. We're working with the Players Association on that, but it's going to be automated. It is already, we already have kind of an app and a function, and it'll be submitted like, rosters are for each playoff game at the time rosters are submitted for the playoff game. It will indicate to the general manager or whoever's submitting the roster when there's an overage or a concern. They probably will know that going in, but it won't allow them to essentially submit a roster that would be otherwise violative of the provision in the collective agreement. I would also say that probably as a result of the LTI changes we made and the playoff cap, that the clubs position themselves in a way where they're not going to be in violation or in potential violation for any playoff game. I can say that virtually without exception. One club who is likely to make the playoffs, if they activated a bunch of players who nobody expects them to activate, they might have some decisions to make. But at this point, we don't anticipate any of the playoff clubs have any issue with the playoff cap.
But, by the way, in the meeting, Sean McLeod, who runs Central Registry, demonstrated a cap that an app that they've developed, which is extraordinary for this. I don't think you'll be able to hack it. I'm pretty sure you won't be able to, but in terms of being a terrific tool for the clubs and Central Registry, they've done an extraordinary job, and they demonstrated how it will work.
Has that app been in use all season, or is that just strictly now starting?
No,
No, it's just for the playoffs.
it's just for the playoffs, and he just demonstrated it for the first time.
Is the roster deadline 2 hours before every game?
Well, no.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what it is, but whatever it is going to remain the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it have the flexibility built in for a game time decision that if somebody needs to make a last minute change because somebody was?
Only whatever flexibility that we have in submitting rosters generally for games. In other words, there's going to be no change in terms of how the playoff rosters are determined and submitted.
Just another variable that's going to be accounted for.
It's going to be the same.
Yeah. Okay?
Any, I saw the Atlanta, the zoning application for the arena
Yeah.
was submitted a couple days ago. Any update on expansion or?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Mr. Bettman, can you give us an update on French television? We know some of the games will be going to RDS next year, but it seems like the other games are still undecided. It's mid-March. Can you reassure fans in Montreal that they'd be able to get games in French on television, all of the games as they are right now?
Obviously, we choose to and try to maximize distribution of our games. We're still a work in progress in terms of finalizing the business model and distribution methods that we're going to use for French television, but I'm pretty confident it'll all be sorted out in advance of next season.
Do you expect that some of those games might be on streaming, or do you expect them
I don't want to speculate. As I said, it's a work in progress.
Anything in terms of the AHL conversation here and CHL what needs to be negotiated with the CHL?
The AHL?
Putting 19-year-olds.
Okay. Yeah, we spent some time with the general managers talking about what changes they want to see in that rule around what we talked about and agreed to with the Players Association. That's a work in progress as well. I'm supposed to see Dan McKenzie and other CHL commissioners later today. I've updated them on what the managers talked about, and we'll have that discussion with Dan this afternoon. Again, the Players Association is a critical piece of this, so it's I would call that a work in progress as well.
So what are the managers pushing for?
Yeah, I don't want to get into specifics. They had certain concerns and pushes and pulls that we beat up over the last 2 days, and I think we have a
Framework.
framework that we're going to try to work with the parties on.
But it wouldn't help for us to talk about the framework publicly before we deal with it with the principals. Anybody else? On that note, safe travels. We're all looking forward to the stretch run and the playoffs in their current format, so thank you for being here.